focus.
Aloha! Okay, so half of you are new, half of you are old. Let's try it one more time. Aloha! Beautiful thing, it's so many syllables, we all know it. It certainly is the greeting of love and compassion. The kind of thing that we want to be doing at Calgary Lougheed is to have meaningful dialogue, have conversations, and to put ideas out there so that we can work together having these conversations so that people don't feel trapped, don't feel that they don't know where they can get the information, and more importantly, know that they don't have to believe the 3 pages of drivel that I read from the NDP handout. I mean, quite honestly, I read the first 2 pages, there's 9 lies in 2 pages. You know, that's like 600 words, about a third of it was not true. So, everything that we're going to talk about tonight is actually something that you can research on your own. You can find the information, you can double check our facts. If we are and have been incorrect, we will be glad to correct our mistakes, which is important to know. This evening's lineup will go incredibly fast. We have a lot of pieces to the evening, so we'll try to move it along as best we can. We have a number of special guests in the crowd that I just want to introduce tonight. We have Hiller Lillies, he's the president of Calgary Curry. We have Jack Redikoff, he's the president of Calgary Fish Creek. Lindsay Davis, the president of Calgary Acadia. Peter Nostovich, who's the newest of the fold, he's the president of Calgary Southeast. He didn't sell the most tickets, but they're the loudest. Cheryl Munson, she's the president of Calgary Mountain View. Cindy Saunders, the president of Calgary Buffalo. And we have some special guests that came all the way from Cypress Medicine Hat, Gwenna and Cliff, wherever you are. As is tradition, you have to realize that normally we would all have left our cell phones at the front or at the back of the room. We wouldn't allow recording of any part of the evening nor any referrals in social media. However, tonight we have new rules. I myself have my cell phone at hand. I would encourage you to have it there because there's going to be a couple times in the evening that you're going to need to take a few pictures of some of the things that are up on the screen, because this is a room of action. If I know anything about the people that are in this room tonight, you get the job done. And it's amazing what has been done. So, with that, I want to give some news and information. Right off the top, 2 of the 4 boys in Coots were released today.
That's their name.
Did I mention that 2 of the 4 were released today? So, our friends at Druthers actually printed up 300,000 copies of the newspaper that talks about the 717 days they were locked up without a trial. I know, it's terrible. There's still 2 that are there, so there's still a lot of work to do. We do have some information available out front so that you can see the call to action and what you can do. This group was instrumental in moving the needle. So many people, you never know the moment that something happens that it's just enough. And it takes, with big problems, it takes a lot of people doing a lot of big things in order to have success. I'd just like to welcome everybody who's watching us. We're broadcasting live across Alberta tonight. So there's 300 people here tonight. There's 2,000 people viewing at home. So, isn't this awesome? the federal government ruled unconstitutional a couple of weeks ago that they overstepped their boundaries on the Emergency Act. That's about the best news. Now, there is better news. There's a Recall Jody Gondak petition going out there. Thank you to the 600 people who sent me an email today telling me that it was happening. If you were one of the 600 and I did not reply, please realize nothing is coming your way. This is your reply. But there will be something for you to do, because the young gentleman, Lyndon Johnson, I love that name, who initiated the petition, is as wonderful as he seems in the media that you may or may not watch. He is as pure as it can possibly be and as naive as it can possibly be at how big the task is. Fortunately, and for those of you from the NDP, the 6 of you that are here tonight, we were not involved in Lyndon's effort to start the petition, just so you know that. However, he looks like the kind of guy that you wouldn't want to go through the mill on his own, so we're going to support the kid. All right? We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but just so you know, there will be a very active program to support Lyndon and what he's doing. You realize we have to collect about 9,000 signatures an hour for the next 60 days, or is it 9,000 a day? It's a lot of signatures. But here's the important thing. People don't like her, and for good reason. 7.8% tax increase, plus they've increased the value of properties 20%. That's a net increase of 14.8% increase in taxes. Okay, so they hit it with 7. By the way, they didn't need to do that. They just added 50 projects at the 11th hour. So they didn't need the money. And we saw what she's done with Muslim families. She saw what they did with our Jewish friends. We saw what she did with $87 billion climate crisis on day one when she took office. Do we need any more reasons? So I am looking for some redeeming qualities in her, and I'm open to the discussion. I just want you to know that. So tonight's schedule, let's tell you what's going to happen. First of all, what matters to you, we're going to have a wonderful exchange with MLA Shane Getson from Lac St. Anne Parkland. We're going to have Tanner Hnidey, 25-year-old economist. He's going to explain to you, seniors in particular, very important what he's going to say. He's going to explain in 5 minutes why we need an Alberta pension plan. So I understand, give him a round of applause already. And the fun thing about tonight is we're not giving you the solution to what that APP is going to look like. We do not profess to say this evening, this is how it's going to be. What we're trying to do is provide you with information that you could share to show others that they don't have to be fearful. And that's ultimately what we've seen going on, is everything is about fear. Okay, that, you know, we watch what happens with Trudeau, we watch what happens with the former premier, we watch what happens with so many people in town, city council. They use fear to isolate everybody. And tonight, this group has shown that they will not be isolated, which is amazing. Now, 600 of you told me about Jody Gondak today. About 150 of you sent us questions. Thank you. We've boiled it down to 5 or 6 that we're going to discuss tonight, and we'll probably fill in some blanks with a few others. Then we're going to have a special section, a room for action, and we'll get to what we need you to do. Because this is really about civic engagement. This isn't about 1 or 2 people doing it alone. It's how we won in Coots, it's how we're going to win again. It takes a little bit of effort from everybody doing something meaningful. Then we have a very special series of guests that we will announce at the very end. They're going to come up, we're going to have a 5 or 6 minute conversation before we announce what our next town hall will be. And it's going to absolutely shock everybody in here, I can assure you. But you're going to go away going, huh. How's good, right? Huh. It's possible. So, with that, I'd like to welcome you and get you to put your hands together. Welcome the MLA from Calgary Lougheed, Mr. Bouchard. What? Huh. I know, I saw that. Okay, that's your mic here. This is you. All right, there you go.
Hi, everybody.
Hey. Hi.
Hey! This is so cool. This is going to be so much fun. Thanks, everybody, for coming here tonight. There's a ton of familiar faces in the crowd. Thanks for taking time out on this kind of crappy night. First off, I want to thank all of our amazing board members and all the volunteers. If they can all stand up, because without all of them, none of this would be possible. Where are you? So with that said, our board is working really hard and very, very motivated. If you reside in Calgary Lougheed and have any interest in what we're doing at all, please reach out to us. We're always looking for new volunteers as well as new board members. I'd like to welcome MLA Jennifer Johnson from Ponoka-Lacombe. Minister Schultz, the Minister of Environment and Protected Areas. We were texting earlier today. She wanted to be here, but she's busy in Ottawa fighting a guy by the name of Stephen Guilbeault. As well as Premier Smith and fighting the porch pirate of the Calgary Northeast, George Chabot. I'd also like to recognize a few special guests, if I could. Marty up north and Sheldon Yakachuk, wherever they are. Thanks for coming. As well as Blaine Vadiak, who came all the way from Lethbridge earlier today. So this is the second of hopefully a very long series of town halls hosted by Calgary Lougheed Community Association, Constituency Association, excuse me. Our first one last October, the Cowtown Showdown, was a sellout a week before the Calgary AGM, the UCP AGM. If you're not a member of the UCP, I highly recommend it. We're going to continue to roll out these town halls, and I think you're going to want to be on the inside rather than the outside. If you'd like to be a donor to the UCP, preferably a donor to Calgary Lougheed, we would certainly appreciate it. Someone recently asked me if I missed running my business. And my answer was an immediate yes. They asked me what I missed. I said, a little bit of everything. I missed the early mornings, the smell of coffee, bacon, the anticipation of the busy day ahead, rinse, repeat, and did it all over again. It was mine. It was mine for quite a few years until it wasn't. I am warming up to this political thing a little bit. I'm starting to, I didn't think I'd say that ever, but here I am. I'm starting to see the value in what we're doing together here as a community with all of us, and the best part is, we're just at the beginning. We're just getting started. So tonight's town hall topic, oh no, I can't. There we go, enough light. Today's town hall topic is probably one that has been on everyone's mind, but it's taken a little backseat given the other topics of the day. Nonetheless, it really needs to be addressed, discussed, and debated openly with civil discourse and dialogue. We're fortunate tonight to have the amazing Tanner Hnidey, who will be speaking on this a little bit later. And I hope you brought some pens, paper to make some notes. The takeaway tonight could potentially be life-altering for all Albertans. Right now, I want to introduce our first speaker of the night, a man I've gotten to know a little more recently. I have to tell you, the more I get to know him, the more I want to know him. To say genuine is not doing him justice. Dude, stand-up guy, honest, integrity, principled, any positive word that you can think of that describes Shane. He's also been a mentor and a friend in the very short time I've been in politics. He's helped me tremendously navigate my new journey as the MLA. I appreciate every moment. I'd go on and on talking about him, but I don't want his head to get too big, so I'm going to introduce him as the whip of the United Conservative Party caucus, and hopefully he can explain a little bit about what that is. It's a pretty cool handle too. Did I mention he's a pilot? Did you drive here tonight? Or fly here tonight? You drove, okay. He claims that Lac St. Anne Parkland is God's country and the most beautiful constituency in the province. I've yet to be there, but I don't doubt it. So without further ado, it is my incredible honor to introduce the United Conservative Party Whip, MLA Shane Getson.
Sure you got the right guy. Yeah, that's pretty darn humbling. So there's an old saying, actually I heard it here recently, it was at okay, we'll do that. I tend to...
Now the irony of that is I said something like this will happen as soon as I get up here. And here we are.
So let's get that fixed and going. So most recently I heard a comment being made, and I kind of made it, and I heard it, and I thought it was pretty decent, and it's a simple thing: you can't fake authenticity. And that man, Eric Bouchard, one of the most authentic, genuine people that I have had the privilege to. Jennifer Johnson, she's in the crowd tonight. Got to know this lady over the last year after sign-in, and obviously she's a member. We're looking forward to making a caucus decision here really quick.
Here, here.
Miles McDougall, again, another gentleman, just a rock star down this area, first-time politician, folks stepping in out of their normal comfort zone to step up and do what's right for the community, for the province, for all the right reasons. Again, another gentleman I've got to know here, and he's knocking it out of the park. And don't let the suit and tie fool you. I just came from the Indian Consulate General's retirement, essentially. He's stepping out, but I normally am from God's country, and it's not because it's the prettiest location. There's a lot of reasons why I started saying that, and basically Albertans had been beaten up for a while. You had a number of years with Trudeau and the NDP government in place, the dynamic duo of something that rhymes with something else. But Albertans kind of kept their heads down for a while, and one of the things where I stepped out of my comfort zone and into politics, part of my consulting business as well, was simply because people were getting beaten up. And that wasn't the province that I remembered. Alberta literally is Texas North. We're the strong and free province. Everybody knows the saying about Texas, well, that stands for Alberta too. You don't mess with Alberta. And getting encouraged by seeing this many folks come out in Calgary here tonight is pretty darn impressive. So the reason why I call it God's country is simply that. The folks, the people that I had the honor and the privilege that asked me to step up and run, that I could try to help out. And that was literally what it was. Oh, that, and I got a couple other things. The lake, Lac St. Anne, there's a pilgrimage that takes place there every year in the native tongue and the native language in the area. It's actually God's lake. And then we had the Pope come out and bless it, so now I'm absolutely incorrigible when I'm talking about God's country. So unless any other constituency can get the Pope to bless their constituency, I've got an inside track on you all. So my background, I was literally a farm kid. Grew up out by Wildwood in that area. We had a mixed farming operation, and grew up during the recession. So it was stealing from the dog to feed the cat. Had a number of things. There was the cow-calf operation. We were very innovative, trying to do everything we could. But with the rates and the things going on out there, there was tons of marital pressures and all the other things that went with that. And I had 2 younger brothers. And we literally, I'll share this with you folks because, again, the suit and tie thing. When my folks had separated and had all these troubles, I stuck on the farm and I took care of my younger brothers. And my father kind of fell apart a little bit. There was, tons of things going on, and literally there was days where I knew how to make bannock. So that's what I would do, is I would whip up a batch of bannock so we could take stuff to school and do that. And it's not to feel sad. There was, a ton of things going on, but when we get in that house, and when conservatives get painted with a brush, that we don't know what it's like, where you have never struggled. Oh, everything's ever become easy to you. All I know is I worked every single friggin' day of my life to watch out for my brothers, to try to do the best I could for my family. And when I went and worked construction, the first job I took at 17 was literally went to the city into Edmonton, and I had $17 in my pocket at the time. And I ended up sleeping the first night on a park bench, and I wanted to get off the farm to get some experience. And I worked for this small patch paving company. And the foreman, I was walking, from the place I was staying, found a place to stay, but walking to work, and then the foreman found out this farm kid was literally walking, 3, 4, 5 miles, whatever it was, to get to the job site every morning. So he picked me up, and I'd give him so much money. And then the owner of the company was up from Full Air, actually, and he was a farm kid as well, and he finally started asking me some things, and then he helped me out, and I've never taken a loan, never done those type of things. It was always instilled in me, work what you don't ask for help, you don't ask for any of that, you just work, you work hard and you do that, and you be proud of who you are. So he noticed I didn't have work boots, I had cowboy boots. And he goes, those aren't steel-toed, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to drop anything on my feet. And so he gave me some money so I could go get some work boots and, moreover, be WCB compliant. But, business owner, right? So I worked my way through that company, and when I went to go to college, the owner came up and said, well, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm going off to school. Like, I really appreciate working for you, Rick, and I, really thank you for everything. He goes, well, I was going to make you my paving foreman. Well, I said, well, thank you, but I've got bigger aspirations. So lo and behold, I went to college. He gave me my first job coming back, and it was as an estimator. And he did this little trick. It was the back office and the front office. So literally he walked me past the back office, and he goes, you're in the front office now. He says, there's things in the business that the guys that you used to work with on the tools are never going to be able to see. He says, you have to understand there's that bit of that separation. You still work with folks, you still do all those things, but there's a bit of a separation, like you're going to be on the inside of that business. And that was a little bit of a life lesson too. When we're in caucus and when we're in cabinet, there's caucus and cabinet confidence. There's things that we can do and say behind the wire, so to speak, that you have to have that freedom of those conversations that we can't share with the general public. Now, are we bad communicators? Yeah. We try. But I kind of put it to folks that there's this air war going on, and we're not it. Like in any theater of operations since World War II, you need top cover, you need air superiority. We don't have that. Conservative movements do not have that. We literally have medias against us, social medias against us. We have algorithms taking place. Heck, we even got this Bill C-11 thing that stops you and I from talking to each other and me sharing the news with you or anyone else. So you want to talk about an uphill battle. So in my areas, it's the same thing. It's grassroots. The biggest thing that we can do is what you folks are doing here tonight. And God bless you, because it's what matters to you. It's having that connection so that when we stand up there as legislators in that office, when we're holding up and we're representing you, that we can say, yeah, I spoke to X number of people. Here's a story that I can articulate. Here's what's going on in our area. If we were to simply do the play-by-play and speak up in those caucus meetings or in those cabinet rooms or even in the House, and if it was everything that was driven by CBC, XYZ, and sometimes Y, good luck. So don't underestimate what you folks are doing here tonight to actually get off the couch from home, to leave whatever favorite movie is, and to give a damn about your province and your country. So I want you to give yourself a good round of applause. So Alberta's strong and free, and it's only strong and free because of the folks in this room. Every time you get chipped away, every time you get pushed back, they're taking a little piece. They're trying to take a piece out of you. But Albertans, we've got some grit. There is no question. And don't be afraid to talk about the good things we have. Energy. The world is a dark, cold place without energy. And when you have policy that starts to be predicated in pixie tails and fairy dust, and if you climb the occasional CN tower or go on former client's house and start stacking up solar panels, and you want to have this hypocrisy, well, all we got to do is look back 3 weeks ago when winter caught up with us. And I'm not against solar energy. I am not against wind energy. I've worked on those projects. Like when I was at Enbridge, we had a big solar panel farm down in Sarnia. I was on the Montana tie line that brought in, our tie line with Montana from Great Falls up to Lethbridge. We threw in 350 windmills. Not against it. But what I am against is thinking it's a silver bullet. What I am against is people pushing policy that have no technical background or wherewithal. What I am against is somebody from down east telling us what the hell we do out west. I'm sitting in the dark at home, fuming, as I see this alert go out, because I'm an individual that worked in that industry and understands some of the integration between it. And I've got my, 15-year-old daughter sitting at the table doing her homework in the dark, basically. We've got a little light sitting there, and I've got the fireplace going and everything else, and I'm literally fuming. Energy is our business. We are the superpower when it comes to energy in our country. And when I'm talking to folks over in Germany and elsewhere, and I'll digress a little bit in that trip, and I'll give you some hope here, because, we've got to tell our story. If we don't tell our story, no one else is going to do it for you. So I'm sitting at home, and I know that we're sitting on the 4th largest known oil reserve in the planet. We're sitting over 223 trillion tons or cubic feet of gas. We're sitting on 80% of the actual coal, good thermal coal, metallurgical coal sitting in the entire country. We've got all of this at disposal, and I'm having to flick the switch. And just down the road from me, we shut down 3 power generating plants that were in my area forever. Yeah. And we can still export coal around the world, and we still know that down east, apparently if you burn diesel fuel, heating oil, there's no carbon issues with that. But if we burn natural gas out west, there's an issue. So I texted that out. Enough. Enough is enough. There is no blessed way that Albertans are going to go freeze to death in the goddamn dark because we can't get our energy policies back together. Moreover, people need our stuff. They want our stuff. When I'm speaking with the Consulate General of India, they want Alberta energy. How do we get it to you? I went over to Germany. Garth Rosewell and I were part of a trip, and we were invited by the German government to go over there. There was him, myself, there was a lady from Ontario. She's an NDP. That's okay, she's from Ontario. So she was on the trip with us. We had one Republican senator, and the rest of the senators were Democrats. And there was I think it was about 10 or 12 of us that were on this trip. And we were invited by the German government to go over and look at their great energy transition file. So I brought flags with me. Everywhere I went, I had a little Alberta flag. I clapped it on the table. And before we got going in these meetings, I explained what Alberta was, talked about our energy sector, talked about our hydrogen file, talked about our environmental plan and what we were to the nation and what we could be to the world. Oh, and the fact that 63% of the energy the U.S. gets from oil, about 54% of that comes directly from my province. Oh, and by the way, the natural gas imports that the U.S. gets, 99.8% comes from my province. We do that 365, 7 days a year, no problem. Like, we do it nonstop, 24 hours a day. You don't hear about big problems. You don't hear about strikes and protests and energy insecurity. Nothing that isn't being caused by policymakers. Everything else is there. We literally have the resources, the assets, and the wherewithal to do it. So we're over in Germany, we're having these questions. Well, firstly, I asked, well, actually I think it was Garth that asked, how much does it cost you per kilowatt hour for electricity right now? 40 cents. 40 cents. Wow. So you're going to phase out all your nuclear? Yep. You have any problems with that in the last 30 years? Nope. Okay, so that's a policy decision? Yep. Where are you going with this? What's clean and green to you guys? Well, it has to be solar and wind. Really? Okay, only solar and wind. Yeah, but we like hydrogen too. Oh, okay. And what are you doing with the hydrogen? Well, we have to make it from water, fresh water. Oh, that's stuff I grow crops and feed and water people with? Yep, that's good. Okay. What happens if people can't afford it? Who's gonna help them make this conversion? Well, the government will pay for it. Okay. So who's the government? Now this is the cool part, right? Where the first interaction we're having is with the consulting group. the consulting group that helps with policy to feed into the 3 different levels of government. The policy group is made up, and no offense to any millennials out in the crowd, a bunch of 30-year-olds who have never lived through anything else other than a really kind of safe, secure area, right? So when they're talking about this, it's a little bit out there. What do you do with vehicles? Well, everyone can ride bicycles. Oh, okay. How do you take your kids to school? Well, they can sit in the basket. Oh, yeah. My son... Okay. So that's what you guys are going to do. Yeah, what happens if people don't go along with it? We're going to punish them. Oh, you're going to punish them with policy. Okay. So we're asking these questions, and at the start, the folks from they were from the lefter side of the crowd. They were looking at us a little cockeyed and looking at us a bit funny. We kept asking these questions. The next time I was sitting with the federal minister of the federal government, they were talking about their energy policy. They had a brilliant young female engineer, and they were talking about the transportation policy. And now a technical person's in the room, not a policymaker. I started pushing and asking what their percentage of failure is, how this is going to work, how they have to displace 50 to 60% of their ridership to push more people on their trains. And if anyone's been over there, I mean, Germans are awesome at engineering. Wow. Like the stuff they put in place, I get off the plane, walk across, my bag's right there, up front on a train, and I'm at my hotel. Right? There's no messing around. So the fact that everyone is, in my opinion, already using the bicycle lanes, already doing all those things, they're going to increase ridership that much more. And I'm going, how is this going to work? She goes, well, actually, we're not going to get our numbers. Well, now the politicians, Chin, at the front of the table is kind of going in disbelief. The technical person and I are talking. The consultant was the one that started jumping in over top and trying to talk over the technical person about, oh, no, that's not right. And she's going, no, that's right. And we're having these open conversations now, and the conversations I was having wasn't with Germany. The conversation I was really having was with my U.S. colleagues that are the Democratic senators. So that's the play. When we go to Alberta, I'm having these conversations with others because that's where they're leaning and looking in towards, is those policies. So that was the federal side. Then we go over to ThyssenKrupp. Has anyone ever heard of ThyssenKrupp? You take in an elevator, take a look at it. They produce high quality steel, been around forever, have a bunch of different industries and everything else. And the other thing I've noticed through my career building pipelines and everything else, I know when I go into a room, and it's no different than this room, I am not the smartest person in the crowd. So when I go in, I'm not afraid to know. I'm just that farm kid from God's country that'll throw his hand up, go, you stopped there? I kind of missed that part. You want to go back? Because I'm not quite getting her. Would you mind repeating that for me? And it's pretty disarming for most folks if I kind of, figuratively throw on the coveralls and have the Timothy seat out, and you're just kind of asking a nice question, right? So the guy from ThyssenKrupp is walking through their steel-making process and how they use coking coal. So it's going to be the really good metallurgical coal. And it has a really good British thermal element that comes with it. And also when you're making steel, the carbon comes for free. So you need carbon in the steel-making process. And then he goes over to the new version. They're going to make everything from a hydrogen furnace. So the hydrogen furnace does not get the material hot enough, it only gets to a plastic state, so then they have to kick it up again, and they're going to use electricity to bring it up to the molten state, and they're not getting the carbon for free. So he's showing this really simple diagram on the wall, and hold on a second, is this accurate? No, you're not supposed to interrupt presentations, but I couldn't help it. I'm going, is that accurate? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, have you ever done this before? Nope, first time we're ever going to do it. And I'm going, well, you're going to have some bad batches of steel. No, we will not have bad batches of steel. Sure you will. I said, have you ever seen any facility? And I says, no disregard to what you guys do. I said, it's the same on our side of the pond. It doesn't matter. Like, you're going to have bad batches of steel until you get the process figured out. I said, are you getting any other additional, carbon? Where are you getting your carbon from? Well, we're going to have to supplement that. Okay, cool. I said, but the heat equivalency. I said, right now what I'm looking at on the wall, you need 15 to maybe 30 times more energy than what you're consuming now. I said, is that accurate? And he goes, yeah. The policy makers around the room, no word of a lie, they're pivoting their heads because we just heard of all the issues and the challenges they were going to have in their transportation, where they're going to get all this electricity, how people got to shut off their lights, how they can't have hot water, how they have to turn down the thermostats, how they're going to do all this because they got to save the environment. And the industry guys are going to have a 15 to 30 times, not percent, times uptick in energy costs. And the person sitting next to me is going, how did you come up with that so quick? I said, well, Using thermal coal as an example, the metallurgical coal has up more BTUs than this, but it's 3-to-1 ratio for natural gas to get the same heat equivalency as what you do with your coal. I said, quickly looking at that, your hydrogen molecule, you've got one hydrogen, I'm already losing four carbon molecules from that. And then you're going to go further by using electrolysis to get your electricity to come up the other side. I said, you're taking fresh water or taking natural gas to do it. So I said, all of a sudden you've lost that. And to produce your electricity is less efficient than obviously nuclear or anything else. So I said, you're up to at least 20 to 30 times the energy. And then they turned to the guy and go, why are you guys doing this? Because we have to. Federal policy is dictating that we have to do this. And then the senator, that was the Republican senator, goes, well, how in the heck is this going to work out for your costs? He goes, it's not. We're going, well, how is your cost right now for production of steel? Now we start asking these questions, and the Dems are all turning their heads going, oh my gosh, now what's going on? The consulting guy, his eyes are about as big as saucer plates, and we're having this conversation as policymakers. And the German gent is starting to get defensive and go, no. I said, this isn't on you. I said, this is for us. This is for us to see what you're doing here, and as policymakers to make sure we have the information so when we go back home that we can either do the great things you're doing or maybe learn from maybe some of the not so great things you're doing. So we have that, and he goes, well, yeah, right now, he says, China and India are eating our lunch in the market, but, he says, this is what we're going to do. He says, we're going to propose it at COP28. I remember who we sent over to COP28? Yeah, Premier Smith and Minister Schultz for a reason. So let me get back to that. The guy says, what we're going to present at COP28 is we're going to have a buyers club. But he didn't say buyers club. He said an environmental group. We're going to have a green group all amongst ourselves, and we'll only trade with other green jurisdictions that have the same policies. So I'm looking at the folks in the room going, okay, so thank you for the information. We'd love to see the rest of your presentation carry on. We get outside and I'm going, does this make any sense? We're going to torpedo North America because Germany is having issues with their energy file. Does that make sense? Because the green definition, I said, I'm going to take fresh water out of my agriculture system, take it away from the folks that need it. I'm going to disregard all the advantage I have in the energy solution and all the practicality we have with it, and I'm going to torpedo our industry so we can go into a buyer's club to make ourselves equal with somebody who has an energy deficit. Does that make sense to you? Does that sound like good North America? So these are the seeds we started planting along the lines. Right? Yeah. I swear, and I'm kind of going because it was a cool story, so I'm hoping you're liking this because I hope I'm not chewing up the whole shot clock. So the next part is, so now we go for this supper, right? We're sitting down with this supper, and Michael Cruz is a gentleman that walked us through the Buchenstadt or Reichstadt, whatever, which the new version is. And they literally over there, they've got the traffic light party. So you've got the green, the yellow, and the red parties came together to form a coalition government. But at least they're open and transparent about it. It's not like, you know, Thelma and Louise or Jagmeet and Trudeau, whichever one you call it. You know, side pack. But at least this one's in the open. So Michael was a pretty neat guy, and he's talking about how tenuous this relationship is and how the policies are kind of an issue and a challenge, but they have to manage this so nicely. We sit down for supper, Michael's kind of got it, I'm sitting across the table from this other guy from the Green Party, a couple of US bureaucrats, and then this other blonde lady comes in and sits to the right of me. So I'm like, hey, how are you? Good. Okay, good. We're good. Michael sees this, he gets up, he walks over, says something in German to her, they're going back and forth. I'm thinking, okay, well that's pretty interesting. You ever heard of the terms hall sex? You know, yeah, exactly. So they're kind of not to the physical sense, just figuratively with the language. So they're literally like at each other. I turned to Michael and I kind of give him one of these. He goes, "That's the leader of the Green Party. I told her not to throw me under the bus because we're actually supposed to be in the same team here tonight." I'm like, oh, okay. The next 45 minutes, I'm having conversations with this lady about what Alberta's doing, how we're not Berlin, how our temperatures are different, how we're actually the same as Siberia, actually, when you look at the weather. All of the attributes and everything that we have going on, what we're doing with our hydrogen file, how we mapped out our whole program, how we're working on the agriculture. And she keeps going, oh, and the other thing she said is, do you know Rachel Notley? Not really. But she knew her, she didn't know our premier, but she knew Rachel right off the hop, which is wild. Yeah. So, there's that. Finally, after about 45 minutes of this, I am absolutely making no headway. This individual is telling me of how the carbon pricing is good. I've already told her what we're doing. There's some pitfalls. That's not good. You need wind and solar. You can't use your hydrogen from your natural gas. And finally, I said, you know, let me just, with all due respect, I said, I don't know that we're going to agree on a bunch of things, but here's some things you have to understand. This is my first time to Berlin, so let me walk you through what it took me to get here. Jumped on a plane, I flew for 4.5 hours to get out of my own country, and we took the short way. There was another hour we were over flying Iceland, another hour and change over top of the Atlantic, and I said, once we hit the coastline of the Netherlands, it was 45 minutes and I'm in Berlin. So I said, a little bit of a size difference. So we're sitting on the 4th largest known oil deposit on the planet. No kids have to go and fight and die in the Middle East for it. It's sitting right there, 223 trillion. You know, go through the numbers, talk about our ag sector, talk about everything else. I said, and here the other thing, by the way. Oh yeah, our biggest polluter is forest fires. 64% of those were started by people accidentally or otherwise, causing the forest fires. And I said, we burnt off the size of Switzerland this summer. And by the way, still 62% of my province is forested. So quite frankly, if you were sitting as Germany and all the stuff we have, we've got 4.5 million people, you've got 85 million, my province is twice the size of your country. If we were sitting, if Germany was sitting all the assets that we have, do you think we'd have a conversation about windmills and solar panels right now? Mic drop. So she kind of looked at her toes. I said, I can't wait for our premier to meet you in COP28, and I hope you ask her about our environmental plan and our hydrogen file. And I said, it's been a pleasure talking to you right now. But I said, I think I'm going to go talk to Michael for a second. So I walked over to Michael. I said, I got to shake your hand again. And we're by that coat rack, and again, very formal, you know, German member of parliament. I said, brother, I didn't realize how tenuous your relationship is. Well done. I reach out my hand to shake his hand and tell him, like, this is something. I said, I'll never get back this part of my life again by sitting there. And he goes, she's freaking crazy. I'm going, really? He goes, yeah, she wants to push out industry. They're pushing all these things. He says, we're trying to balance it. He says, there's no compromising. All these things it was like I popped a blister. And I said, partner, I said, let's keep in touch, because honestly, I think Alberta's got the solution for you. The other thing that came up, yeah, give that up. The other was that 30% probability of failure. So we're meeting with the energy minister of North Rhine-Westphalia, which is like Alberta, Germany version. Like they've got all the industries, they've got all the technical colleges and universities, and they're like the powerhouse in that area. And we're sitting across, oh yeah, planted flag. So that was on the table first, we're sitting down. And then I had some pins, so next thing you know, they're putting my pins on it, which, you know, says strong and free, Alberta, yeah, on their pins. And our flag's on the table. And we're talking about these challenges and what they're doing through policy. And I said, okay, 30% chance of failure. And they're flipping to the slide. Yep, I'm kind of interrupting a bit, but we've got a really good report going. And I said, so let me put this in context. I'm going to jump on that train tomorrow. I'm going to leave Essen. Going to whip into Berlin. That thing's whipping along at 200 kilometers an hour. Oh, by the way, it's a Bombardier train, which is really cool. So we're going to whip along this Canadian-made train. We're going to whip over there, and I said, and there's a 30% chance that this thing is going to be in a smoking pile, a heap of rubble on the side of the right-of-way. Because I got a 30% chance of failure before getting there. You want to buy the ticket and sit next to me? And he kind of looks at me and goes, I said, well, who's figuring out your problem? Someone else, others. It was always by others. There was no one person in those rooms that knew the thing that was solved. But God bless them, they got head down, they were going for it. When I took Julie, she's the Republican, or the Democratic senator from Chicago, Illinois, we end up at one of these lignite mines. So that basically it's dirty coal, it's brown coal, it's not the stuff we wouldn't even dig it out of the ground. But they have to use it over there, and they're going to keep running their coal productions for at least 2030. Oh yeah. And there was a couple areas where they had to actually knock down windmills to get to the coal that was underneath it. So that was kind of interesting. But they are planning where to put their solar panels and everything else. They're going to put them in these corridor things. So these environmental corridors is what I call them. So it's the same concept when we're talking about economic corridors and our policy and energy. We got to start putting these things in the right places. So they're doing that. So that was bonus. All right, so we got the same thing, knocking down windmills to get to the coal. So we come wheeling off the side of this thing. There's this nice vista, and it's beautiful. You got this nice pull up over the side, 38 square kilometers of open pit, 200 meters deep. Beautiful bucket wheels running, nice conventional. You've got these conveyor lines going, big steam, big plume going up the air because it's about 50, 60% moisture in this stuff, if not 70. And you've got all these earth moving equipment, everything's going, and I jump off this thing, and it's like, isn't this gorgeous? Julie's right behind me, she's going, what? And I go, well, you must love this, Julie. Like, look at this, this is what you want, isn't it? She goes, no, we want to stop mining and stop production of coal and all these things. We want to go to electric. And I'm going, electric? Where do you think you're getting the materials to make the electric stuff you want? I said, this is easy. I said, we're just digging up dirt here. I said, you need 10 times the amount of mines right here of this size to get half of the stuff that you're looking for your EV future. She didn't realize. A lot of folks that are making these policy decisions is tugging on your heartstrings, is doing all that, but they don't understand. So one of the things that you got to do is just be yourself. Understand your industry and talk about all the good things we're doing. Don't try to change their minds. Just tell them what's going on. Let them plant the breadcrumbs so they can do that. So having these conversations with these folks, at the end of the trip, they were asking the same questions that Garth and I were up front. And coming away from there, we've made some really good friends, we've changed some minds, and I thought I caused an international incident with dealing with the Green Party. But we had a gentleman that runs the Transatlantic Corporation, so basically it's Germany's extension for offshore arms. And it was started, the whole transatlantic bridge concept was started back after World War II. So instead of tossing lead downrange in Europe, we thought, hey, why don't we tie our economies together? It was the Marshall Plan, all that. So we've had these communications for years. And even the US Embassy, when we were there, they were talking about resilience and adaptability. So this is the Biden administration not pushing a huge green narrative, talking about resilience and adaptability. Building structures and things that'll last, talking about being adaptable when you do it. So we get this call from the German consulate. They call us up and say, hey, this guy's coming over. Can you arrange a meeting with the Premier? Now, if you understand anything about German folks, they plan things out well in advance. And anything that has to do with dignitaries and protocols, it's well in advance. The consulate was apologetic, like, this is only 3 weeks ago, can you do something? Oh yeah, I'm going, no problem. So I'm like that little duck where my feet are just going underneath the surface, and I'm just cool as a cucumber. Oh yeah, no problem, we'll make this happen, no problem. So now we're scrambling, we've got Premier schedule and everything else. I'm going, this is really good, So we got this gentleman to come over, and we had a quick meeting with him. He asked us a bunch of information on our environmental file. So firstly, the world thinks that our Indigenous First Nations people are 100% against us. They're not. Under the economic corridor model, we've managed to do that. We've got the AIOC. We've done a ton of things here, lots of really goodwill in building the province the way it should, and quite arguably, I would say, too, a lot of the stuff that's kept us apart for years, park that, start over, let's start building and do it on what it was. And Treaty 6 in my area couldn't have a better symbolism than that. It's two people shaking hands. And that's what I go back to in our area. It's about making a deal and keeping it and doing the right thing for everybody, right? So that's kind of where the concept was there. He asked about the environmental things, was very surprised, heard about the hydrogen file, was very surprised, heard about the volumes, and then he kept asking, well, how can you get it to us? I said, don't worry about that. You let us worry about how to get it to you. You just tell me how much you need and when, and we'll figure it out from there. So we go for a steak after this, a steak, by the way, absolutely a steak. And Premier's assigned me to be point on this to figure out how to get energy over to Europe, so that's the deal that we're working on. So we're sitting down for a steak and we're having a really good conversation now, and he goes, he says, my first time ever to Alberta, he says, of all the places in the world I've been to, and we didn't send a big delegation for him to meet him at the airport, put that in the back of your mind. He goes, I have never been made to feel more welcome in any place than right here. He says, I'm getting excited, like, there's possibilities, there's things that we can do. He says, and you guys are, I said, we're kind of cowboy. I said, honestly, well, I'm not the most polished politician, but what we'll have is actual practical conversations, and we can do something, we'll work on the challenges, we'll get her done. I said, that's what we do here. And I said, and again, it means a lot to me. So we met the next day down in Calgary with 2 other ministers, and again, at the end, he pulls me in, and we're having this conversation about how we can work together across the pond. He says, you got to come over to Germany. You have to talk to our media. They have to see this for themselves. They got to talk to somebody from Alberta. He says, because They're not getting that message. He says, and I'm seeing this. It's not just you. We've checked with other people in industry while we're here. It's the same thing. Like, Alberta's the place where things happen. And he says, but this is going to be tough. And I kind of pulled him in and said, hey, Mike, I said, if it was easy, somebody else would be doing it for way less money than you and I, right? So let's just make it happen. And that's what we have. So now we're literally working on that file, same as the Indian file with India itself. India does not like Justin Trudeau. They literally punted him out of the country. Now riddle me this, Batman. Why is it that Saskatchewan and Alberta can go over to India, and we're over there literally right now at their oil show? Why are we welcome there? Right? You can't fake authenticity. You can't fake authenticity. Coming back to my colleagues that I mentioned there. When we represent and carry ourselves, that's what we've got to do. So did you hear we opened up the most recent foreign trade office? Did you hear about that this morning? Yeah, it's in Ottawa. If we're not at the dance, we're not able to do these things. If we can't talk to our consulate generals, if we're not talking to the folks that represent us, this is what happens. And we've been sitting back for too long. And believe it or not, I got a lot of these lessons from my colleagues in Quebec. The MLAs from Quebec, we get along like peanut butter and friggin' jelly. Honestly, we do. It's all that other federal stuff and the conjecture that goes back and forth. So what I'm here to tell you is a couple of little stories, because that's all I am, is just a farm boy, a storyteller, to give you some hope. And this is what happens when we just take the initiative and we step up and we're not afraid to be ourselves. Albertans should never hold their heads in shame for what we've done in our past or history. We learn from our mistakes, we admit them. Premier Ralph Klein showed us all that. We made some mistakes, he admitted. And we've got a premier right now that, God bless her, you know, she took the file I was working on, those economic corridors where, you know, the other administration really wasn't listening to it. She ended up taking that, and not only did she put it in transportation and economic corridors, she literally made a ministry for it, but there's 10 other ministries that have that baked in. And it basically encapsulates everything I'm talking about here tonight. It's talking about creating pathways, creating conduits, not only within our own country, but across the states, pulling that in together and across the world.
Here, here.
Now, I heard some criticisms tonight, we're bad communicators. Yep, duly charged. And part of it is, we're really good at the ground game. The other teams already encapsulated the air war, we gotta figure out how to do that, but we're good at the ground game. What we want to try to do is to have these things and really appreciate you guys taking the initiative, having these monthly town halls to get it out there. We want to work with you, everybody in this room, to figure out how we get the information that you need. So we can do that. We'll do that through the CA presidents. We'll do that through the boards. We'll do that for our friends through the alternate media that haven't been bought and paid for. Did I say that wrong? Yes, we'll keep doing that, but we'll try to get out these little messages. And if you're looking for some big splashy thing right now, it's not. It's hurry up and wait. We've got some very key policies we brought out. We're not going to be running out there as much as the movie theater thing is cool with big marquee lights. There's a certain thing and an attribute to what we're doing here. You have to understand, as Alberta, Saskatchewan held the line when we turned NDP. They were like literally holding the line out there. We managed to get our act together as a province and come back to it. So you've got two outliers in the country right now. And the other side is talking about how we're trying to divide and separate the country. Quite the contrary. We're the ones trying to pull it back together, to remember who we are, to remember where our place is. And by the way, other people like it. We would never have seen as much migration from across the country of Canadians moving to Alberta unless we had that. So let's keep going. There's going to be a ton of wedge issues they can use against us. The biggest thing, the conservative, the whole movement on that side, the biggest enemy is us. Look to the left of you and look to the right of you. It's us. How? Great question. I've been married 21 years. Beautiful lady. She's got a hard head. God bless her, she needs one to be living with a guy like me. And she challenges me and I challenge her, and we have robust dialogue and everything else. And I've been married for 21 years. I don't know that I could say the same thing as I probably could in the room about you folks. I think everybody in this room, if you look at conservatives, we probably get along with about 80%. 80% of the stuff that we have, we probably agree to that. It's the 20% we'll fight to the friggin' death over, and fracture our movement. Or we get frustrated because it's not happening fast enough, or it's going too fast, or that's the stuff. And if I'm on the other side, I'll feed that monkey all day long and I'll get you all fighting amongst each other. And guess what? That's what they do. And do you think they play fair? Nope. As an example, and I really appreciate the CA president saying this earlier, for the 6 of you who are recording this that want to take it to Rachel, well, good luck in her next job, by the way. The ones to take it to the NDP party. I was literally out in my area, 2.5-hour town hall, 80 people in little old Evansburg at the time. Little old Evansburg. 2.5-hour conversation. I talked about one part on the pension plan where we're going to have to do some arm twisting when we get into negotiations with feds. They took a 12-second clip of a 2.5-hour presentation. The next day on Twitter was Rachel Notley. Not that she wrote it. Oh, maybe she did. I don't know. But someone under her handle on Twitter, Rachel Notley, wrote, "See, UCP Chief Government Whip admits arm twisting is part of the UCP's plan when it comes to the pension." Oh, I've got this other really cool trick too. I'm invisible. I'm 6'2", 235 actually today. So 230, but it's been a long drive. 235. I've been to presentations where we talk. I've literally talked in front of the media in my first term, just coming out of COVID, talking about launching the air show, talking about all the things that we're doing on the aerospace file, talking about all the diversity that we're pouring into the marketplace and what we're doing for the local area. I had literally the head of Edmonton International Airports and the mayor of Sturgeon County thank me for all the work the MLA did. And I'm thinking, 10 minutes, this is awesome. This interviewer is going back and forth, he's got a camera, I'm going, right on. Finally some good news stories. I'm gonna get some good headwinds or some tailwinds here on this one. The next day, I wasn't even there in the newspaper. So when you folks get frustrated that we're not getting the message out, but I talk about cheesies and watching cartoons, well, that made national news. So we're going to need your help on these files. And with that, it's the grassroots communication that goes back and forth. And with that part, I really want to find out what matters to you. So usually I would have a Q&A session. I think we'll probably book this till the end, let the other presenters get in place. But there's everything. If I can talk to you about it, I will. If I don't know, I'll get back to you. And you have to understand, if I can't talk to you, it's because of one of those other items. We're playing chess here too, folks. So, it's not only can't have the poker card sitting on your forehead, there's other things that we're involved with that we literally swore to confidence that we can't talk to you about. It doesn't mean we're not working on some things. If you trust us, you're going to have to give us a little bit of trust and some length to do the right thing too, because we're in it for the long haul. We can't mess up the next election, let alone the next 3 or 4. And I'm so happy that I see so many folks in Calgary here energized, because blue's my favorite color.
One more time for Shane Getson. I, on the other hand, don't have these problems saying things. And I tend not to hold back. I think that there are roles for everyone to play, and I think that out here in this room right now, so many of you want to always be involved, and that's the key. I remember before the election how many conversations I had with many of you that said, but the media won't play fair. And I said, well, don't talk to the media. I said, we're going to win this one conversation at a time, one door at a time, one person at a time, and we won. And I have to admit, in Calgary Lougheed, right, there's 6,500 NDP votes and there was 100 signs. So they have a system, and we have a system. And our system is better than their system because we're reinvigorating it, and we're working with it, and we're going to develop it so that it is perfect. And by that I mean we're going to listen, we're going to communicate, we're going to argue, we're going to disagree, and we're going to come out ahead, because that's what it takes. That 80% of agreement that we have on issues, we can win with that. The other 20, we'll have to have some more dialogue, see where we're at, maybe put a pin in some of them. Our next speaker is amazing. He's an economist, he's young, he has 1 million followers or listeners to his podcast every month, and he's from Lloydminster. Yeah. So it's just proof that social media will work absolutely everywhere because it's near my hometown in Vermilion. So there are people that will tune in. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Calgary welcome to Tanner Hnidey. Got your mic over there?
I do. Am I speaking first for a bit?
Oh, you grab it there.
Okay.
Sure. So, Tanner and I, we had an opportunity to talk before. Some of you might have heard us. We did a little pilot. And the fun part about talking with Tanner is that there's always creative ideas. And I don't think anything that we're going to talk about tonight is actually the solution. But we want to present to people viable options and to reduce the fear. That's really the key that we have. So with that, you have a really good presentation up here. I'll let you go for a little bit, and then I'll come back and we'll do some questions.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for, can you hear me all quite well? Thank you for having me out this evening. I am so excited to be with all of you. It's my pleasure to come and talk to you tonight about the possibility of an Alberta pension. Of course, it's been titled, What Matters to You? I don't know if they have the first slide. There it is. You can see how it's been designed by myself and my brother. My brother, Hunter, is here. You want to stand up tonight, Hunter? As a matter of fact, he's the brains behind all of this research, and him and I are touring the province right now, hosting lectures that discuss exactly this and how to talk to your neighbors about the pension plan. Because, of course, it's surprising to absolutely none of you to hear that Alberta pays more into federal government programs than what we receive. That's not surprising. It would be surprising if instead we heard that Alberta received more from federal government programs than what we paid into it. But of course, then it wouldn't be a federal government program. I bring that to your attention because the same is true with the Canadian pension plan. On the next slide, I discuss Alberta's disproportionate spending. Because I mean this honestly when I say every single year, Alberta sends billions, and I mean billions, more into the pension plan, into the Canadian pension plan, compared to what we, Albertans, or seniors in Alberta to be more accurate, receive in return. The first graph on top details that. It shows a variety of years how Alberta has contributed billions more into the pension plan than what it's received. 2.5 billion, 3.5 billion, $3 billion year by year by year by year. And this is not an emerging phenomenon. It has been this way for decades. Since the CPP's inception, for most of the CPP's existence, except for a few years, Alberta has paid more into the Canadian pension plan than what it's received. As a matter of fact, our payouts have been so generous compared to what we received back that we are now in a position, over this veil of decades, of having given Ottawa, the CPP, a net contribution of $60+ billion. And that's before inflation. Trevor Toome, for example, has estimated that after inflation, our net contribution looks more like $80 billion. But it's really so much higher than that when you think about opportunity cost. What could Alberta have done with that $80 billion that was otherwise shoveled into Ottawa? Think of the wealth that's been lost. Think of the money, think of the investment we could have had that instead was foregone in exchange for this Canadian pension plan. Oh, but the CPP earns 10% rates of return. I had the unfortunate displeasure of listening to Janice Irwin a couple months ago. And she was giving a short talk on now what's formerly Twitter, talking about why Albertans should remain in the CPP. And she says, why would you want to leave the CPP? Why would you want to do so when it's one of the best performing pensions in the entire world? Why would you want to emancipate yourself from all of the benefits that the CPP generates? 10% returns, 10% returns, a 10-year annualized rate of 10%. It's unbelievable. It's incredible. Why would you want to leave? Now, of course, as is so often the case in politics, Miss Irwin and her radical activist friends were telling half-truths and are therefore, or were therefore, telling whole lies. Because although it's true that the Canadian Pension Plan Investing Board, the investments that the Canadian Pension Plan Investing Board makes earns 10% returns over 10 years, that much is accurate. What about you? What do you earn? What are the benefits for you? You see, if you were born in 1905 and you retired in the mid-60s, your rates of return on the Canadian Pension Plan were about 39, 38%. That's incredible. That's miraculous. That's magnificent. That will never manifest in the Canadian Pension Plan ever again. Unbelievable. Now, of course, those people who were born in 1905 are either now dead, or if they're not dead, they're still working in government. So, their returns don't concern us. We're concerned about those who were born in the 60s, in the 50s, in the 70s. What are your returns? Not 39%. Not 20%, 2.5%, 3%, 4%, maybe. The older you are, the higher your benefits become. So if you're born in the 50s, early 50s, late 40s, your benefits look more like 4%. For someone like myself who's born in the 90s, my returns on contributions will be maybe 2.5%. But it's so much worse than that when you think about the fact, the disgraceful fact, that the CPP, your CPP payouts, are taxed. That's taxable income. Only government could at first tax you to pay for a program and then give you the benefits back and tax you again. So, although activists say the CPP earns 10%, that has nothing to do with your rates of return. Your rates of return have to do with how long you worked, how wealthy you were while working, how much you made, and the age at which you decide to pull your pension. And then when you do pull your pension, government, in its supreme generosity, decides to tax it. I have one more slide here, a new opportunity. Now I have more slides, but time fails us, so I'm going to stop here. Fact of the matter is, we now have 3 problems just in this short speech that are before us. 1, the first problem, Alberta's disproportionate payments to the CPP. The second problem, are dismal returns. They are not the juggernaut returns that activists claim that they are. And third, the fact of the matter, that your pension payouts, wrongfully, are taxed. 3 problems. 3 problems lie before us. Now, of course, we haven't come here tonight to just talk about problems. We've come, as Daryl has mentioned, to talk about possible solutions, and you know what I'm going to say the possible solution might be. We have a solution, a possible solution to these disproportionate funds. We have a possible solution to all of this weak returns. We have a solution to all of this massive government taxation. The answer in this particular speech is an Alberta pension plan. Quite obviously, in an Alberta pension plan, we would no longer be sending money with regards to these disproportionate payments. We wouldn't be sending billions more into that Eastern Hydra every year. We wouldn't be sending money to feed that Eastern machine. Government has far too much control as it is. The federal government has far too much control as it is over our finances. And if we have the opportunity to regain some of that in this province we love, to regain some of the control over our finances in this province we love, we have a moral obligation to do so, and we're going to do so. Secondly, with the returns. Alberta, because of our demographics, is right now in a position to either, with its own pension plan, maintain contribution rates and increase payouts for seniors, or decrease contribution rates and maintain the current payouts for seniors. As for myself, I am in a position, I am of the conviction that we should decrease contribution rates and maintain payouts. Because think of, for example, a scenario where you as an individual, not a married couple, but an individual, save $1,000 per year under an Alberta pension plan, which is a very real and probable possibility. Suppose that you saved $1,000 from this new plan every year, and you took that $1,000 and you invested that $1,000 year after year after year for 40 years. Suppose rate of return, an average rate of maybe 8% or something along those lines. At the end of your 40 years, when it comes time to retire, you as an individual will have amassed $370,000 in wealth. All of that would otherwise be lost to Ottawa, to the CPP. But if you have that saving, you can invest it, and then of course if your spouse invests it, that's almost $800,000 to be used by you as you wish, instead of government handing you out a check every month. For what, $750, $800 on average? The difference is stunning. And finally, once again, I am of the conviction that we do not treat seniors properly in this country. We do not treat our seniors well enough in this country, and one of the first steps to fixing that problem is ensuring they have ample income and ample money to live on in their older years. That means no tax. That means no tax on an Alberta pension plan payout on pension checks. So then, the path before us is quite clear. As I mentioned before, the federal government has far too much control as it is. They have far too much leverage over this province as it is. But we have before us right now an opportunity to gain back, to regain that leverage, to take back what's ours, to take back what's ours from Ottawa, to release so much leverage, so much power that they exercise over us right now, and instead bring it back home. This Alberta pension plan is critical. This Alberta pension plan is necessary, and it is one of the foundational steps in guaranteeing the rights and the freedoms and the dignities that all Albertans deserve. Thank you.
Okay, so he literally only needed 5 minutes. So you're going to have to whip through a whole bunch of slides that he's not going to use and get yourself all the way to the part where it says help.
Yes.
Right?
At the very end.
Where, like, we missed all these slides. He explained
Yes.
what he just told you in 5 minutes. Tanner, when I look at seniors and I talk to them, there's a lot of fear.
Yeah, so much fear.
When we talk about pension money, it's important. I can't imagine how tight, well, my wife and I have a small business that people come and buy groceries. We literally see seniors shopping with a calculator. So we know that the benefit isn't enough, particularly in these Trudeau-induced inflationary times. So, is it possible that the Alberta pension plan could increase seniors' benefit by 20%?
Oh, so much of this depends on, the answer is yes, of course an Alberta pension plan increases seniors' benefits, without a doubt. There's no question about that, and it increases future generations' benefits. Absolutely. Now, we are right now, of course, looking at numbers. One of those big numbers includes the payout that comes from the CPP, should Alberta choose to start its own pension plan. What percentage of assets are we, as Albertans, owed? Now, of course, as you know, there are going to be a variety of interpretations as to how much Alberta is owed. No one questions that we're owed money. No one questions that we're owed billions and billions of dollars. The lowest assessment that I've seen thus far is $120 billion. LifeWorks is saying, what, $350 billion. And so the measure that, or of those assets, how much assets Alberta receives, will vary the numbers a little bit as to what the benefit for Albertans looks like. But it certainly gives Albertans benefits, no matter what that number is, whether it's 120 billion or 350 billion. I am of the conviction that it's closer to 350 billion when you think about how much Alberta has contributed over the last how many years. When you think about the fact that because Alberta is younger, so much more of our pension money goes to savings instead of paying out seniors, as it is in other provinces, and so on and so on. But as I mentioned before, with those lower contributions, right, the benefits are, when you invest that money which you've saved, are so unbelievably high that the possibilities are borderline endless. I'm so excited.
Sometimes people forget something called the liability, unfunded pension liability. I saw an estimate that this was $1.4 trillion. And the number that I saw that was actually invested is 556 billion. That's what they say on paper, whether it's actually there depending on the investment that they made. So if you have this unfunded liability that's 1.4 trillion, and Alberta's paying 53% of the benefits, wouldn't it be the time to get ourselves out from under that potential liability?
So, here's the way the CPP works. That's a good question. The CPP is what's called a pay-as-you-go system. That means as much money as the CPP brings in every year, it pumps it out to seniors. It saves only a few $billion from all of the payments that come from the provinces, except Quebec, of course, because they have their own plan. It saves only a few $billion to invest. But we have right now, in the country, an aging population. More and more individuals across the country are going to be collecting their CPP very soon. That means that the obligations, the payouts that are owed to upcoming seniors is starting to turn, or eclipse is more accurate, it's starting to eclipse the amount of money we're paying into the pension every year. So, for the moment, what is the pension going to do? Well, they're going to take from the assets that they've invested in to pay out all of those extra seniors that have now started collecting their pension. But the chunk that that CPP has to take from the assets every year is growing. So Hunter and I were doing research yesterday. Hunter, what was the number by 2050? It was 16% of asset investment income, right?
Yeah, 35.
And up to 35% of investment income by 2100 is going to be used for paying out pensioners, which is an unbelievably high number.
So Bernie Madoff had a thing. And he went to jail. They called it a Ponzi scheme. But by definition, the Canada Pension Plan for Albertans is a Ponzi scheme. Because you have to pay money in order to have enough money coming out to the pension plan. This is one of the things I think people have a real misnomer. It's not an RRSP. It's not that. It's pay as you go. So it's insurance, it's actually social welfare.
Yes, that's most accurate. I would say it far more looks like an insurance policy or a social welfare policy compared to a pension policy. That's a great way of describing it.
We're going to get to some questions in just a second, but there's an action that I need you to do. So if we can go ahead a couple slides here. So this is a room of action, and this is the part where I need you to take out your phone. So take out your phone, everyone take out your phone. I never do this, by the way. I never allow the phone up, but I even used it 3 times tonight, so I'm kind of giddy over the whole thing. Let's advance to the next slide. I need you to take a picture of these email addresses that you're about to see here. Take a photo. And just to be clear, the top one is Eric's email, calgary.lougheed@assembly.ab.ca. The next one is Shane's, Lac St. Anne. Notice all the E's in there, don't get it wrong, at Parkland. Next one's Miles. Miles has got the easiest one, so if you can't remember any of them, remember Miles. Let's go to the next slide. There's Jennifer at the top. Jackie, lovely. Jackie sends her regards. She's the MLA for Camrose, and she wanted to be here tonight. She's actually watching live. And down at the bottom there you see Danielle Smith, the Premier. Keep in mind, we need you to send an email to each of these individuals, one at a time. Don't send it to one and CC the others. Okay? Yes, you can cut and paste. If you need help, Rick will write you an email. The point being is that in the offices of the constituency associations, they receive 8 4s. Yes, let's support the Alberta APP. And they see 13 against. See a problem there? And it's not that conservatives don't care, it's just that we like to sit on our hands to keep them warm. But this group, what I want to see happen tomorrow, when these MLAs go into their offices, I want them to see your emails. I want them to see that this group can activate and can send an email. Keep it short. I support an Alberta pension plan. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go, but I'd like to get to the next step. That's what you need to say. Don't bore them with your dissertation. Okay? Don't bore them with your problems. Don't talk about canker sores or bunions. Please don't. If you need to, send it to rachel.notley@assembly.ab.ca. If you want to talk bunions or addictions or anything like that. So let's go to the next slide. So it's really important that you take action. And you're going to have to take action on 2 things tonight. The first one here is the Canada Pension Plan. Tanner will be here after to answer any individual questions. It's likely you're going to have some. His brother can answer equal number of questions, Hunter. But it's important that you get over the fear. And so all of the emails that you sent us with questions, let's just deal with the Q&A right now, because there's some interesting questions. So, there's a couple, Gwen and Cliff, that we introduced earlier. They drove here all the way from Medicine Hat. And to ask this question: could a new APP be available to all Albertans, including farmers, housewives, waiters, small business owners, etc.? You realize that Canada Pension Plan isn't available to a whole bunch of people, right? Small business owners, if you own it, you can't be in it. If you're a waiter, you're not in it because you're living on tips. If you're a housewife or a farmer or a domestic engineer of any type, you're not included, okay? But is it possible that an APP could be all-inclusive for everybody?
Oh, certainly. Why not? We have, again, in this province, a generous demographic where our workers, our citizens in this province are younger on average than other provinces. We work more than average on other provinces, and we're wealthier on average than other provinces. And so those factors combine to, as far as I'm concerned, create a possibility where you can extend an Alberta pension plan to a variety of individuals, right? Absolutely. The housewife one in particular interests me, right? We live in a country where we do not venerate the housewife as they ought to be venerated. That is the highest career.
One of the points that was always overlooked is that the former finance minister of Canada's company, Bill Moreau, was the company that actually said that Alberta owned 53% of the CPPIP, right? It wasn't like we had a conservative think tank do that.
No.
It was a former Liberal finance minister.
That's right. It wasn't Fraser Institute or another, libertarian think tank that created those, worked out the calculations from the CPP Act and created those numbers. It was LifeWorks. You're absolutely right.
Let's go to the next question. This is Valerie from Highwood. Can Alberta have an APP like the Saskatchewan Pension Plan?
That's another good question. Okay, so the Canadian Pension Plan Act stipulates that if a province is going to leave the Canadian Pension Plan, then it has to do so with its own pension plan that guarantees similar or better benefits and is comparable to the CPP. So, for the purposes of leaving the Canadian Pension Plan, we have to abide by a few of the same rules, or more than a few to be entirely honest, that the CPP does, so that we're actually allowed to leave it. But there is absolutely nothing that says we couldn't, as a province, create another pension plan, like the Saskatchewan Pension Plan, which allows people to opt in if they so choose, and go forth that way.
It's super flexible too. So they call it the SPP. You can go to saskpension.ca and look it up. But basically it's an RRSP that is managed by the government. No, it's managed by fund holders. And it has an 8% return. They charge 1% of the 8 to manage the fund, and they return 7% to the investors. And being involved with it, like there's every combination under the rainbow that you can do.
Yeah.
You can have just yourself, you can have small business, you can have a housewife, you can have employer-employee benefits. It works within the context of your RRSP contribution, but it's another pension.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And it dawns on me why this is important. If you're a union worker, how many pensions do you think they get?
More than one.
So you'd have your, let's say it's the ATA. They're my favorite target this week. So your pension is managed by AIMCO, the Alberta Management something.
Alberta Investment
Oh yeah,
Corporation, yeah.
Nice acronym. But more importantly, people have to realize that the unions are crapping on AIMCO as the potential manager of the fund, yet their own funds are managed by AIMCO.
Yes, and more so, those union members, or the representatives, tell AIMCO what to invest in.
Oh, so they make bad decisions.
Right, right. So, for example, and this is a real example, if a particular pension fund that's being managed by AIMCO wants to invest a portion of their pool in, say, renewables, then AIMCO has to do so. Right? One of the tenets of a new Alberta pension plan has to be that the investment manager is totally separated from government in every aspect.
And that's possible.
Absolutely possible.
Let's see. When the power went out in Lac St. Anne, you were getting, let's see, the grid has 30% renewables, I think, if I saw the grid number right. Did I get it right? And the renewables were generating 0.1% of their capacity. So when it's cold, we need extra electricity, but the windmills and the solar panels don't work. And when it's hot, the windmills and solar panels don't work. So we need air conditioning. So when we need it, it's not there. I think this is a great NDP policy. They should stick with it. All right, let's go to the next question. So Marcus from Varsity, you notice I'm moving the people around who sent me the questions? Could the new APP be an opt-in, opt-out plan with tiered options, like insurance?
So this is another good question. For the moment, I am focused only on leaving the Canadian pension plan and starting our own Alberta pension plan, because that's the first step. Now again, if the province is going to do so, it has to abide by the rules of the Canadian Pension Plan Act. We can leave the pension plan today if we wanted to, right? If the Premier and her government decided to announce today or tomorrow that we were leaving the pension plan, the Canadian pension plan, she has every legal right to do so.
So she, just because of Bill 2 though, she's gonna have a referendum.
Right, she has a referendum. Yes, that's correct. But at any rate, you know, theoretically, she could do so today. Now, if we were to say, we're going to start our own APP, leaving the CPP, and we're going to give people an opt-in, opt-out option, the feds would say, no, you can't leave. You can't leave because you're not abiding by the rules for leaving the CPP. You have to first abide by those rules if we're going to emancipate ourselves from the Canadian pension plan and start our own Alberta pension plan. Now, you know, then the government can have discussions later, but for the moment, that's the rule.
How long do we have to stick with the rules? Like if I'm Trudeau, how long do I have to stick with the rules? And do I have to go by the rules?
Right. So
I'm just curious. I don't understand government sometimes.
right. So of course, if Darrell doesn't follow the rules, he goes to jail. Right. If Trudeau doesn't follow the rules,
He goes to India.
right.
Okay. So Louis from Fish Creek asked this question. Will an APP affect the federal old age security or guaranteed income supplement? Because that's always implied that there's going to be holdbacks.
Right, and of course, they're totally separate, right? The OAS, GIS, and CPP are entirely separate institutions, for lack of a better word, in the country. Totally separate. You know, even officially, the position is the CPP is entirely separate of government. Now, I think that's a dubious claim to make, considering the federal minister appoints the board members for the Canadian Pension Plan Investing Board. But at any rate, it's supposed to be publicly an institution that's completely separated from government and completely separated from OAS and the Guaranteed Income Supplement.
Because they're funded differently. So CPP is funded by the money that the employer and the employee puts into the pension plan, whereas old age security and guaranteed income supplement is paid out of general revenue.
Right, they're different. Yes,
So
that's
that,
correct.
and so not even Trudeau could make an argument that they're the same.
Not even, well, Trudeau might, knowing Trudeau, but not even Trudeau, yes, not even Trudeau can make the argument.
Okay, Cliff from Calgary Lougheed, and for those of you who know Cliff, you'll be amazed that I got his question on one slide. Could the APP be individualized like insurance, and can it have a death benefit for the estate?
So that's another good question. That's similar to the one we answered a few ago, right? Again, to start, an Alberta pension plan has to be very similar in its structure to the Canadian pension plan. If it's not, the feds have a right under the Canadian Pension Plan Act to say, no, you can't leave. Now, of course, that Canadian Pension Plan Act is unbelievably vague. It's very vague. That's so typical of government legislation and government bills and so on, to be vague, right? If you build a house, you build it precisely, because if you don't, you know that the house is going to fall. But if government builds a house called a country, they make it as vague as possible so they can reshape it whenever they want to fix their or to achieve their objectives and their ideals. But this particular section is clear. To start, we have to have something similar. What happens after, there's nothing in the CPP Act that talks about it, right? That's intentionally vague. Now, the death benefit, that's another good question, because of course, what happens tragically if your spouse dies young right now? Do you see the returns on their CPP contributions? Right, it's unbelievable. First of all, it's an unbelievably complicated calculation to figure out what each individual is owed. But more than that, you and I know it's not fair. Could you imagine if you would put your money with your spouse into an investing firm, your investments, and then tragically your spouse dies at 65, and the investment manager says, well, money's gone. It's gone back into the pool. That'd be nonsense. And so I see absolutely no reason, considering, once again, Alberta's demographics, Alberta's wealth, the fact that we will receive a transfer from Ottawa, what assets, there'll be a negotiation, but we will receive a transfer of assets. Again, not even Trudeau could claim that at zero. All of those factors combine to create the possibility, the probability of creating a much more fair pension plan for widows and widowers.
So for our NDP friends who are here, let's be clear. We're saying that we would have an Alberta pension plan that would pay our seniors more. We'd have an Alberta pension plan that could have a survivor death benefit larger than $2,500. And maybe even, here's an idea, just spitballing, we could have it so that young people, after they've vested after 10 years, they've invested for 10 years, could take out a sum of money and use it as a down payment to make housing more affordable. What about that?
Right, like there's nothing, so many things irritate me with government and with activists, but there is nothing that irritates me more when I hear the argument that the UCP is in danger, or that you're in danger of the UCP stealing your pension and your CPP. That is such nonsense, right? That is such nonsense. It is impossible for a government, for a provincial government, to say, we're out of CPP and then take away all the benefits and completely axe the system. Again, the CPP Act doesn't allow for that. If that were to happen, the feds again would say, no, you can't do it. So when we hear our friends, at whatever rally they're at, talk about the danger of government, of this provincial government stealing the plan, stealing your pension, hands off our pension, right? The answer is that's total nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. It's not allowed under the Act.
So we have the party that's considered the party of small business, economic development, growth, good fiscal management, saying, hey, we'll make sure your money's going to be there. We've got the party that spends crazily on everything and not really needing to balance the budget because it'll balance itself. And we want to leave our money with them. Like, I don't understand how anybody can be convinced that leaving your money in the hands of Justin Trudeau is a good idea. Yeah. Like, to me, that's the basics. Now, let's go to the slide. Okay, for those of you who are slow on the uptick and didn't hear me, right here. I didn't see you take your camera up. Okay, thank you. Be sure you have a picture of this slide and this slide, because this is essential to show support to caucus, the Premier, and your MLA. Now, somebody says, my MLA is orange. Tell them you love the APP. Because here's what's going to happen. 10 if you can. The point is that if our caucus knows that information, this is when you CC a government member, this is the time to CC somebody. That, let's just say you CC'd Eric or say Shane. And Janice Irwin gets up on the other side of the house and says, I have never heard one Albertan who has ever been on side with the APP. Ooh. Well, Miss Irwin, I've got an email here from your constituent, Lois. And she said, da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, well, it's only one. Good that you brought that up, Janice. Here's another one, and another one, and another one. You see the point. We need to give our legislators ammunition, information. We got to show them that we're on their side like a big blue wave. You guys heard me use that phrase at the AGM, the big blue wave? You are the big blue wave. Give it up for Tanner Hnidey, everybody. So I'm going to move over here. So we have two special guests. I'm just going to get this set up here for them. Having a conversation can be incredibly challenging. And the issue of parental rights is top of mind right now. Now, Calgary Lougheed was the sponsor of the UCP policy that went to the AGM this last year. You have to realize that all of the governance committees and all of the CAs put in about 10,000 hours to boil it down to 30 policies that were voted on. And 29 of them were overwhelmingly received, and the one that rejected was just wrong. So well done for everybody who was there. Now, let's just go to the next slide. We're building on town halls because we want to have conversations that you wouldn't think that we would have. We want to be available, we want to talk, and we want to connect with people because we're willing to feel a little uncomfortable, and we're willing to empathize for a moment. It's important. I thought that the Premier's approach to the parental rights bill that she was proposing showed great love and compassion. It showed balance, it showed understanding, it showed that conservatives weren't monsters. Again, NDP people, if you could use that quote, I'd appreciate it. Conservatives are not monsters. But more importantly, she had a grasp on reality. Again, use that piece. And her reality is Alberta's a very diverse place. It has a lot of diverse opinions, and as has been pointed out consistently, if we can be 80% agreeable, it's not just a pass, it's a prosperous province. So, yes, thank you. So, before we introduce the next town hall, I want to introduce two people whom you would not think through public perception would ever be on the same stage together. The first person, this is Jennifer Johnson. Jennifer is the MLA Lacombe-Pinoka. She's an independent MLA. She sits in caucus on the, well, she doesn't sit in caucus, she sits by herself on the, what they call the patio in a ledge. Jennifer, where are you? Come on up here. I'm going to provide the editorial. Jennifer, these aren't things that she would say out loud, but realize that she took a stand on an issue. It was not done in context at all. And she got more votes in Lacombe-Pinoka than the last MLA, actually any MLA ever in Lacombe-Pinoka. So well done. Now the next lady, you saw her at the AGM. This is Blaine Badiuk. Blaine, come on up here. Where are you? Now I have a good opportunity to talk to both these ladies today. And the interesting part about it is when we were talking about parental rights, we were like, here, I'm going to back up so you don't have that shadow. We were in agreement on parental rights. We agreed that it was essential for parents to engage and be responsible for their children. So I wanted you to hear it from them, their position on parental rights, so that there was no confusion by CBC TV or Global or the National Post or any of the alphabet people, and I mean media, on the fact that there is unity on the issue of parental rights. The details, we can work with those. But let's talk about the concept. Jennifer, you go first.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Daryl. And actually, can I say thank you also to MLA Eric. Thank you for having this tonight. This is just fantastic. And I can't tell you how excited and warm my heart is to see you all here. And to Shane, who is also, I heard the word mentor tonight, and he has been just a fantastic mentor to me. And I always say I'm pretty loyal to him, and I trust him. So thanks for the greats. You represent us on the world stage so well, and I'm so proud of you. And we're here to talk about parental rights. I was told we're done 5 minutes. So we're going to keep this short with the good graces of Blaine beside me. And, you know, I think parents have the investment and a role to play in the raising of their children. Would you agree? I think this is something we would all agree on, and we all want to see our children grow successfully into adulthood. And I think this is something that the government is trying to reflect in this legislation. I am really excited to hear from Blaine. We've had the privilege of connecting recently. We've had a few great conversations, and you know, I think Blaine has a real first-person perspective as a transgender woman, and I think it's really important that we hear from her and to hear her perspectives, and I would love to hand it over to you.
Well, thanks, Daryl, and thank you, Emily Bouchard, as well, for the invite. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you, Emily Johnson. So, I mean, absolutely, I am so proud of our Premier for having the courage to start having these conversations, because we need to. We can't be afraid of having these conversations. So much, especially from the left, we see the cancellations of people simply because we have a different opinion. That's not okay. That's not who we are as Canadians. That's never been us. So my message is always conversations, not cancellations. When it comes to parental rights, parents are the primary caregivers of their children, the primary educators, and as a future mom, I will be the biggest mama bear out there. So let's start on the premise that almost every single parent is a loving, caring parent, that they will accept their children, whoever they are and however they identify themselves. And that's what this policy does. We have seen it be politicized by everyone across the political spectrum, and it's time for that to end. And let's actually start talking and start seeing each other as people. Our children are actually watching. I've been in the schools, I have seen this. And we need to give them every fighting chance and every ounce of love and support and resources so they can succeed and become productive, engaged members of society. Yeah.
So I want to introduce our next town hall. It's called Let Kids Be Kids. And it's going to be on Tuesday, March 12th at 7:30. Now, we don't know what the agenda is going to look like. We don't know what the program is going to look like. But what we do know is we're going to address the possibilities of what should be in the legislation. Not the minutia, not the wording. We just want to know what parents need to have supported by the government so that they can be, in all cases, where legally required, the primary caregiver. This could be in education, this could be in health. I mean, just recently we saw Alberta Health Services slide that little potential policy out there that said that you won't have rights if your kids, if you're 8, is it 8 or 12? 12 or older to know their medical records. Okay, oh, by the way, they made a mistake. They had to withdraw. But they show their hand, which is the point, okay? So we're going to have a dialogue, we're going to have a conversation, we're going to build a program around that. We're going to continue to work with groups, with parents, with adults, with children, so that we can support the Premier and caucus as they move forward on the Parental Bill of Rights. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, to all of the volunteers, all of my board members from Calgary Lahi. Thank you to all the presidents, government people, and of course, most importantly, thank you to everybody who votes. Because you guys activate and do what everybody needs, which is to stand up and say something meaningful. I will say that there is a petition at the back to recall Jody Gonda. There is merchandise back there from I Am Albertan. It's beautiful merchandise, speaks to the soul of Alberta. And if you do not have a membership, Catherine is out back and she'd be happy to sell you a membership to the UCP. With that, thank you everyone and have a great night.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're going to talk to you.
Rent each other again? Oh, that's hot. I'm guessing we'll rent each other again at some point? Yeah. Might see you at the next 10 hole. Actually, here, wait. This is probably...
I'm actually good with money, so I don't.
Yeah, she moved to Winnipeg.